Hi, it's Jimmy, and I wanted to speak to you directly without an audience for just a bit before we start the show, because here we are again on another day of mourning in this country. Once again, we grieve for the little boys and girls whose lives have been ended and whose families have been destroyed, while our leaders on the right, the Americans at Congress and at Fox News and these other outlets, warn us not to politicize this. They immediately criticize our president for even speaking about doing something to stop it, because they don't want to speak about it, because they know what they've done and they know what they haven't done, and they know that it's indefensible. So they'd rather sweep this under the rug. And, most Americans support keeping guns out of the hands of criminals and children. The majority of us do, Democrats and Republicans. And the reason they call them common sense gun laws is because that's what they are. Common sense. 89% of Americans want background checks before a gun can be purchased, which is just the very least we can do. A bipartisan bill passed in the House. It's been stalled in the Senate for over a year now. They won't pass it because our cowardly leaders just aren't listening to us. They're listening to the NRA. They're listening to those people who write them checks, who keep them in power, because that's the way politics work. That's the idea we settle on. So we tell ourselves, but it doesn't have to be that way. Not for this. You can tell things are out of whack when the coach of the Golden State Warriors shows more leadership and passion than almost every Republican in Congress. And I say this tonight with the hope, not with an expectation, but with the hope that people like Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott and John Cornyn, people who were elected by Texans, will actually listen to it. Instead of going right to gun control laws don't work and we need armed teachers and guards at schools. If your solution to children being massacred is armed guards, you haven't been paying attention to what's going on. There was an armed guard in Buffalo. There was an armed guard in Parkland. There was an armed guard in Uvalde. They had armed guards. There were police officers armed on the scene. And these murders still happen. And gun control laws do work, by the way. We know this. 26 years ago, Scotland had a school shooting that killed 16 kids and a teacher, and the government responded by enacting gun control legislation. And there hasn't been a school shooting in Scotland since then. In 1996 in Australia, a mass shooting killed 35 people. They passed gun legislation. They haven't had one since. This is the only country where this keeps happening. Firearms are now the #1 cause of death for American children and teens. #1. Senator Ted Cruz, I will say, is stepping up to comfort the people he serves, is the NRA. Ted is scheduled to speak at an NRA event this weekend. And here's the thing. I don't believe Ted Cruz doesn't care about children. I don't. I refuse to believe he's unaffected by this. He's a father. I bet he went to bed sick to his stomach last night. It's easy to call someone a monster, but he's not a monster. He's a human being. And some people might not like hearing me say that, but it's true. So here's the thing I would like to say to Ted Cruz, the human being, and Governor Abbott, and everyone. It's okay to admit you made a mistake. In fact, it's not just okay, it's necessary to admit you made a mistake when your mistake is killing the children in your state. It takes a big person to do something like that. It takes a brave person to do something like that. And do I think these men are brave people? No, I don't. I don't. But man, I would love it if they surprised me. I would love it if any of these guys surprised me. I don't know. This is not a time for moments of silence. This is a time to be loud and to stay loud and not stop until we fix this. Some people say this is a mental health problem. Others say it's a gun problem. It is both, and it can be both. So let's work on both of those. There have been 27 school shootings so far this year in this country, and it's May. How does this make sense to anyone? These are our children, and our representatives are supposed to represent us. We want limits on who can walk around with an AR-15, and it damn well shouldn't be a teenager who works at a fast food restaurant. If we can't agree on that, forget it. This is not their fault anymore. This is now our fault because we get angry, we demand action, we don't get it, they wait it out, we go back to the lives that we should rightfully be able to go back to. But you know who doesn't forget it? The parents of the children at Sandy Hook and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and now Robb Elementary School. They won't forget it. So if you care about this, and we all do, doesn't matter what party we vote for, we all care about this. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that unless they do something drastic, that let's make sure that not one of any of these politicians ever holds office again.
The first law he signed is what was being called the Constitutional Carry Bill, which gets rid of the licensing and training requirement for Texans.
I'm signing 7 laws that protect Second Amendment rights in the Lone Star State.
Breaking news, an almost unspeakable tragedy.
At least 18 children and 3 adults killed in the mass shooting
outside of Robb Elementary School this morning, now the scene of the nation's second deadliest school shooting. It feels like the saddest place on earth.
We know from past experience that the most effective tool for keeping kids safe is armed law enforcement on the campus.
Police say Ramos, who was wearing body armor, was immediately engaged outside of the building by a school police officer. Ramos then shot the officer and made his way inside.
We support the right of every law-abiding American to be able to have a weapon to defend themselves. That is different from teenagers unlawfully getting access to guns to commit crimes.
These weapons were purchased legally in the state of Texas.
He purchased 2 guns on his 18th birthday.
The shooter, quote, had no problem legally purchasing the assault-style rifles used in the massacre.
My approach is to have multiple options. They are 15.
The Texas rampage comes just 10 days after another shooting massacre at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York.
Another mass shooting in America over the weekend, this time at a church in California.
So when people say I won't support guns, they're dead wrong. Boom!
A shooting happened in downtown Milwaukee and left 17 people hurt.
The deadly Sacramento shooting left 6 dead.
13 people are wounded.
A shooting at a car show in Arkansas.
In the space of just 16 hours on Sunday, there were at least 3 mass shootings.
Twin mass shootings.
And mass shootings here in this country, 212 this year.
We don't have a gun control problem.
So 1 out of every 10th mass shooting in this country happened in Texas.
Texas is now a Second Amendment sanctuary state.